The phone had been ringing, but finally the McCall was answered. NC State finds their QB1.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's right, $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Happy Thursday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We have another Grayson to welcome into Wolfpack Nation. Coastal Carolina grad transfer quarterback Grayson McCall has chosen to run with the Wolfpack. Made the announcement on Wednesday morning through Inside Pack Sports that he has chosen NC State as his final year of eligibility. We have talked about that the sweepstakes is kind of seeming to roam on a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but he chooses NC State. You have to assume he is going to be QB1. I mean, he's not coming here to not be QB1. I'll put it to you that way. The player that we are getting in McCall here, again, 3-time Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year. He's got over 11,000 total yards at Coastal Carolina, over 100 total touchdowns. He's rushed for over 1,000 total yards. Just a great athlete, a solid quarterback. What do you think that Grayson McCall is really bringing in his bags up to Raleigh?
I mean, I think we're getting a guy who's played on the big moments, in the big stages. I think a lot of people forget how high the heights that Coastal Carolina got to under him were. For those of you who don't remember, let's go back. Let's hop in the Wayback Machine. Let's get in our Sherman and Peabody bag right now, right? And you get back to Zach Wilson, Grayson McCall, BYU, and Coastal Carolina, because BYU's opponent, somebody had COVID or something like that, and they had to pull out, and this was the game of the century. You got two teams that are now Power 5, the two highest ranked, and what happened? Grayson McCall went out there, lit it up, put on a show. Not only that, I believe he's a multi-time Sun Belt champion as well in terms of winning their conference championship game. This is a young man that has winning pedigree behind him. He has statistical success behind him. And a lot of things that people say, well, he played at a lower level. It's not the same. I'll tell you this. Certain things may not translate, may not transfer. The ability to run at the Sun Belt level, you're absolutely right. The defensive line may get a little bigger, a little quicker, a little faster at the ACC level. Not taking that away from you, not going, it said that's not a thing. But the ability to be poised, the ability to be calm, the ability to read defenses, the ability to make special things happen out of RPOs, ball is ball. Like, let's stop acting like, this young man was playing in some little league or something like that. This, he was a special talent putting up historic numbers. I think that he can do that at NC State as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like Grayson McCall. Was he at the top of my potential board? No. But do I think he can be very solid at NC State? Yes. He can make all the throws. He's got a 70% career completion percentage, which is higher than we've seen at NC State in quite some time. He's very mobile, as I mentioned. He's got over 1,000 career rushing yards. He has fantastic improv skills. He has the ability to keep plays alive, and then out of that tends to make magic happen. That's a lot of the highlight reel stuff you've seen from Grayson McCall, is a lot of the improv stuff, and then all of a sudden he's chucking it down the field, hits a guy on the run for a 65-yard touchdown. So, based on some of the stuff I've been hearing about him, and especially in that interview with Inside Pack Sports, he's coming here man on a mission. He's coming here to win. He's coming here to hit the ground running. Sounds like he's already been working on some recruiting of his own for the NC State Wolfpack, working on building some relationships. I think that he can be a very dynamic quarterback for the Wolfpack. I think he can do everything that we need him to do. As I mentioned last week, I don't think NC State in 2024 needs a Jaden Daniels. They don't need a superhero quarterback to get to where we're trying to go. You just need a quarterback that can make all the throws. McCall can. You need a quarterback that makes good decisions. McCall does. And you need a quarterback that's a good leader and is a good athlete. He's both of those as well. And on top of all of this, if Robert and I is one of the people that identified McCall early as a target, who on earth would I be to disagree with that? Robert and I is the offensive magician who put on clinics time and time again here in just his first year in Raleigh. If he looked at McCall and told the rest of the staff, hey, this is a guy that I would love to have under my wing, I have full faith that we're going to see some magic out of those two.
Yeah, and the only potential drawback that I could possibly see out of the Grayson McCall situation is that he has played in a situation where his team always had the superior athletes. That's the only possible knock that I see at a high level. You know, you could talk about this last year not being great, but it was a very injury-riddled season. If we're talking about the seasons where you had a full sample size, you could say like, yeah, he played with teams that dominated everybody that was in front of him physically. That's about it. I mean, everything else that you're going to ask him to do, he's done it. He's seen it. He can do it. I think that this is this is an excellent pickup for the Pack. And one more thing that I'll say on it, I may be old school. Maybe this is why I'm not a coach, and maybe this is why I'd be unsuccessful as a coach. I don't believe in ordaining anybody with any position. I don't care if you were the Heisman winner last year. If you come into camp and you're lackadaisical, lollygagging, if you come into spring ball and you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, well, you know, we got to have a conversation. That's just me personally. But other than that, again, in terms of Grayson and who he is, I think this is a great pickup. I really and truly do. I think that he's going to be something special. And we'll get to this in a minute, but I think he adds a very important piece. But folks, I think we ain't done yet.
The Wolfpack land, who is presumably quarterback one, they locked in their best offensive weapon this year a week before the portal opened. As we talked about yesterday, you got some big-time names visiting Raleigh here at the end of this week into the weekend. This is a big piece to get done very early in the portaling process. We got about another month of the portal being open, but some massive pieces to go ahead and get out of the way and showcase to all these potential recruits. Look at what we're building here at NC State. We got some special athletes on the way. We just got some special athletes in the first week. This could be you as well. We need you to get us to where we're trying to go in 2024. This was a big time deal to get this done as early as they did. So I think McCall is a very solid pickup, but I think all of the other guys around him can make him even better for the Wolfpack.
Let's not pretend like we can't bring superior talent to Raleigh. Let's not pretend like we can't put together types of classes where it's like, hey, we're going to have an offensive line that can lean on people and kind of chew the clock whenever we want. We're going to have a defense that's fast, that's physical, that's tough, because we talked early in the season about how all the speed on defense really wasn't showing. By the end of the season, it was very visible. It was very, very visible how fast this defense was, how they were flying around, how they were doing the things they need to do. So, you know, the reality is we can get those types of guys to Raleigh. We can bring special players into Raleigh. And if we can combine that with a quarterback who I think that Grayson McCall is on, y'all know my three tiers of quarterbacks. Quarterbacks you win in spite of, quarterbacks you win with, quarterbacks you win because of. I think he's on the lower end of the highest tier. I think he's on the lower end of quarterbacks that you win because of. On a bad day, you'll win with him. On his best, he's going to be a guy that's like, hey, he can do it with anybody.
But now that we have the quarterback position out of the way, or at least one of them, because we're still getting another one, what else do we need going into 2024? We're going to discuss after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is simply the most fun you can have this football and now basketball season. You can win up to 25 times your money selecting two or more players and just picking more or less on their projected stats. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball using the Specials League. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. So, for example, you can choose LeBron James and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. And if you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schulz, you can now find community plays under the promos tab. These are entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. And of course, PrizePicks offers the reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So head on over to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Back here, a couple more minutes talking about some transfer portal possibilities. Going down the list here of our 5 commits so far, of course, we have wide receiver Wesley Grimes from Wake Forest, center Zeke Correll from Notre Dame, offensive lineman Valen Erickson from Mizzou, JUCO tight end Dante Daniels, and then, of course, quarterback Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. Kenton, where do you see the sights being turned to now? What do you think NC State really needs to focus on here in the next week and a half to add into this roster?
I know I joke a lot about Coach Gibson being able to coach up 11 sentient Roombas to a top 25 defense, but let's not make that a reality, right? Let's get it. And I'm not saying, that's no disrespect to players already on the roster. I'm just saying that you're going to probably need a few more depth pieces because, I'd say at Mike linebacker, you have a starter and a depth piece in terms of Betty and Fordham, however you want to use the two in that regard. And then at will linebacker, you could say, well, if Betty or Fordham, whichever one isn't the starter, you could bump them over to Will. Okay, sure. But then that leaves you needing 2 backup off-the-ball linebackers. You know what I mean? Or 2 linebackers that are versatile enough to be guys who can really, in Coach Gibson's system, the only linebacker that's an off-ball linebacker a majority of the time is your Mike. So, you're going to need some versatile linebackers that can do a little bit of everything. And those just don't grow on trees. So I'd love to see us go get some of that. And also we need some depth up front. We're losing a good amount up front in terms of CJ Clark being gone, in terms of Savion Jackson being out of eligibility, in terms of, basically having a situation where you're going to need guys to step up more heavily. Last year that were situational. I'm looking at you, Red Hibbler, who is a pass rush specialist that's going to be looked at as a 3-down guy next year and so on and so forth. You're going to need some complements to those pieces that you currently have.
I do find it interesting that the first 5 commits were all offensive positions here. Now is about when you're going to start to see the influx of defensive guys. Of course, you have quite a few of them visiting here this week. I know there's a JUCO lineman that we're looking at. I believe his name is Kamari Copeland. I know we're looking at the JMU defensive lineman that I mentioned yesterday and James Carpenter. Of course, you have Tamarcus Cooley. He's bringing Corey Coley Jr. with him. Both of those guys from Maryland, both defensive backs. Feel probably really good about the likelihood of both of those guys picking NC State. I do know that there's a tight end we've been in the mix for. I think our likelihood is probably pretty good there. But now I think after the first week and a half, we've gotten 5 commits out of the way. NC State's probably going to hit a little bit of a waiting pattern. And that means obviously NC State still has quite a few players that could forego the bowl if they choose to, or they could end up playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. But a lot of the continued developments, I guess more so on the defensive side than offensive side, are going to kind of depend on those decisions that are still yet to come. Guys that decide to play in the bowl, probably going to hear about that in the next couple weeks or so, as we are just 2 weeks away from that bowl down in Orlando. You might have some guys opt out. Still don't know quite yet about those either. So If those doors open, of course, additional doors will open in the portal. So it's a little bit of a seesaw now that we've gotten some massive pieces out of the way. Looking for a couple more of those by the end of this week and, bleeding into next week. But I think things after these first couple weeks, we're coming out the gates hot. You might see it slow down just a little bit as we're waiting for some other dominoes to fall.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And even beyond that, I mean, the reality is National Signing Day is coming up, and that's obviously going to,
That too,
kind of affect how things look numbers wise based on who flips, who stays, all that type of deal. So, we'll see how this thing ultimately works out. But these are obviously things that if we can identify them as needs, I'm sure the coaches have as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, with all due respect, we don't get paid millions to do this. We are not getting paid Tony Gibson money to evaluate this team. And so I'm sure that he has, stayed up many a night wondering what this team needs and what they need to go forward much longer than we have. And so in Tony we trust, in Dave we trust, in Thunder we trust all those guys to do what needs to be done to get this team where they need to be. It's just from our view looking in, we're going to need some help in that front seven next year. This isn't hey, we're going to replace Peyton Wilson because whoever this linebacker is coming in is going to be the guy. No, it's more so we're going to replace Peyton Wilson because everybody takes a step forward. Jalen Scott takes a step forward. Devon Betty, Caden Ford take a step forward. Everybody takes a step forward. That's how you replace the production of a Wolfpack legend.
a lot of the buzz surrounding these first 5 acquisitions, I believe NC State is rated in the top 5 of transfer portal classes so far. Still got a lot more to do, but rightfully so. These first couple commits are something. They are a whole lot of something. We are building something very quickly heading into 2024. We're probably a couple real solid playmakers away and some good depth pieces away from looking at 2024 straight down the barrel. Like, we could really do something.
I feel like the fans miss a whole lot of something, a whole lot of nothing. We ain't did one in quite some time. We may need to run that back for the edification of the fans. But in all seriousness, you're absolutely right. That is a whole lot of something. We are looking at a situation where a top portal class is not just, you're bringing in a bunch of one-year rentals. It means you're also bringing in guys who have a little bit of staying power, who have some sticking power, like potentially a Hollywood Smothers, where you get 4 years of a young man. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm going to tell you what. Like I said before, they can't tamper. We can. Hollywood, come on down. This is the place for you. Let me ask you this, Hollywood. What team do you know that you can come home to that's on the upward trajectory? Who?
There's only one of those.
I'm just asking. Hollywood, there's only one place that you can come home and ride a plane that's going on the up and up. That's taking off as opposed to landing. You know what to do. Pick up the phone, baby. Give us a call. We'll work it out.
Hollywood Smothers, in my opinion, has to be the top of the top priority going down the road here. I mean, he's a highly touted running back. He has a lot of eligibility left. He's got ties to the area. His best friend in Casey is on the team right now. What more could you possibly want in potentially a game-changing skill position player? This is the place to be for Hollywood Smothers.
Absolutely. And look at the weapons that are going on around you, brother. I'll tell you this much. Teams may not be able to pack the box against the pack like we've seen historically, like we've seen in very recent history here. You're going to look at some real light boxes, because if you pack in that box, then you got to worry about KC one-on-one. You got to worry about Juice Vereen one-on-one. You got to worry about Dakari Collins one-on-one. You got to worry about a lot of guys one-on-one. And Lord forbid, if Paylor is everything we think he's going to be, Anderson, everything we think he's going to be, Lord forbid, next thing you know, you look up and you say, well, hold on now. You got to pick your poison here. And I'm just going to say this. It's a damn fine poison to hand you off the ball, brother. I'm just saying.
Up next, we're going to round out our Thursday episode discussing the Ohio versus the NCAA court case and what that might mean for one of our own Wolfpackers. After a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor is FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's right, $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and continue winning this NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Last couple minutes here of our Thursday show. Wanted to shed a little bit of light on this Ohio versus the NCAA court case. Basically, the judge in this case issued a temporary restraining order for the next 14 days involving two-time transfer immediate eligibility. So for the next 2 weeks, all the transfers that are currently ruled ineligible, unable to play, are now eligible to play immediately. So what does this mean in NC State terms? Basketball guard Cam Woods can now suit up and play for Kevin Keats' Wolfpack. How significant do you think this is, Kenton?
I don't think very significant because it's a 14-day hold. It's a 14-day restraining order. Let's just be very real about this thing. This decision could go another way, as far as I know. Now, I could be wrong there, but the information I've been given based on the situation is that it's very touch and go, and it could be reversed or whatever the case may be. And I will say this, as the young people would say, don't mess up the vibe. Yes. That's don't mess up the vibes. This is a situation where this team, I'm not going to say they have an immaculate world-beating vibe going, but they're starting to gel together. Everybody's starting to learn where they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to do things. DJ Horn is finally kind of feels like he may be breaking out of some of his early shooting woes. Don't mess up the vibes for a player that you're also very possibly going to have to take out of that situation in a couple of weeks. Now, if we're talking about putting him in some in garbage time or whatever the case may be, and again, there's no disrespect to Cam because I think he's a fine player. If somebody gave me a crystal ball and said, Ken, this is how this situation is going to play out, he'll be able to play from here going forward, I would absolutely say, look at how you can work him into the rotation. Not as it stands right now.
An additional point to this ruling is that any player that has been ineligible, if they do play, but then the ruling is reverted back to that they're ineligible, that their eligibility will not be affected. So it will not burn a red shirt. They can play basically scot-free. But no, I agree with what you said because I was going to say the same thing. I worry that inserting Cam Woods now would kind of throw off the vibes of the team. And like you mentioned, they are slowly starting to gel. They're slowly starting to find a little bit of an identity, trying to get set rotations in place. Inserting Cam Woods now, I'm not sure that's the best idea, especially when you got to play Tennessee on Saturday night. We're going to talk more about that matchup on Friday's show. That's a very consequential game for your entire season and your resume. So to be kind of tinkering with another player and throw him back in the lineup when he has not yet played so far, I do not think that's a good idea at all. Now, if you want to do that against another non-conference game, maybe next week, okay, maybe sure. I can see getting him some run in the event that he becomes eligible for the remainder of the season. Maybe you can find use for him, but I worry about trying to do much with this potentially too fast. And if I know Keats like I think I know Keats, he's probably going to be very reluctant to make any changes in this scenario specifically. But Cam Woods for the next 14 days is free. We've been saying it until hopefully it was turned backwards. For the next 2 weeks, he's free. We'll see if anything comes of this situation.
Yeah, the NCAA is losing their teeth. They keep taking L after L after
Big
L
time.
in court. And we're headed towards that thing I was telling you about, the singularity of college football separating from all the other sports altogether. We're right there, In the words of that song, we're halfway there, because we are. We're more than halfway there. We are not, in fact, living on a prayer in this situation. It is very much so some substantiated evidence that the NCAA may cease to exist as we know it before Grayson goes bald like I do. Probably well before that.
That'll do it for us here on Thursday. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in with us. Make sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box so I have plenty to choose from for Fan Friday tomorrow. Christmas is coming up. You're going to see all your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your second cousins. Tell them to subscribe to Locked On Wolfpack. Maybe they'd like it. It's a free gift. We're free. Tell them about it. Mash
Yeah.
that subscribe button. We will see you all tomorrow. Until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.